I'm not an AI hater. So I think AI is fantastic. I think it's surrounded by hype. And the hype is mostly financially motivated. They need to keep presenting wonderful stories about what AI systems can do in order to get all the money that they need in order to keep their show on the road. I think that the show will continue even when the market crashes, and it will be very useful. There are all kinds of useful things that we can already do with AI, and we will be able to do more of those useful things, including things which are done in this building, whatever happens to the share price of NVIDIA. So 3 years ago, I published a book with a German collaborator of mine who was, and still is, an AI entrepreneur in Germany. He's also a biologist, a mathematician, a philosopher, a journalist, the father of 5 children. We wrote this book together. So he was facing a problem in his attempts to build AI for German companies, in that all the companies wanted a chatbot. They wanted to be able to save money with customer queries by using AI chatbots. And he knew in his bones, and he also knew from his own experiences, that it was impossible to build a chatbot which would satisfy human beings. As everyone knows who has used bank computer chatbots when they call their bank, they do not produce conversation-ready inputs which do not cause extra work, shouting or expressing yourself 7 times slightly more clearly, or slamming the phone down. They don't produce utterances that would make the human user comfortable. And that's because, like everything that machines do, chatbots are simple systems and human beings are complex systems. And that's a biothermodynamics statement. So the mathematics of simple systems and the mathematics of complex systems are very, very different. And you can never build, using a machine, a good, accurate simulation of the behavior of organisms, because all organisms are complex systems. There will always be a gap between what the computer can do and what the human would do. That is the background. And what this means basically is that even though AI systems do wonderful things, a lot of the time they're cheating. In other words, they're creating a simulation which they claim is a simulation of a human process, but which is not a simulation of a human process for the reasons I just gave, which means that inevitably it will at some point break, do something which falls outside the frame that it should fall within, because it's a simple system. All right, so now I'm going to talk about AGI, and I'm going to raise questions based upon this idea that AI systems are in a way cheating. When they cheat, they do wonderful things, but it's still cheating. I'm going to take these 2 definitions of AGI, both of which are quite common. There are several definitions of AGI in the literature, but these are 2 good ones for my purposes. So we're going to talk about human cognitive abilities, about tasks, and about autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work. I'm hoping that by the end of this talk, you will all find that particular definition ridiculous. So we have these human cognitive capabilities because of our genes, but also because we go through lives in which we are embedded over and over again in different sorts of group behaviors or team behaviors. So this happens already when we're being suckled at the beginnings of our lives. Then we go to kindergarten, and then we go to school, and then we go to university, and then we get a job. And all the time we are working with teams in contexts where the teams are influencing what we do, helping us to do the right thing, and thereby, we hope, improving our intelligence, our cognitive capabilities. So these are the environments in which these particular co-workers or collaborators are operating with us to build this team-generated improvement in our intelligence capabilities. And I call these team niches, and I'm working on a whole theory of team niches, which is based on existing work on what they call distributed cognition, which is not my work. So I'm just filling in some gaps. All the time, in many of the things we do, we rely on other people. And if we want to do really ambitious things, then we're going to be relying on lots of other people. And I put the Buffalo Housing Court here. That's going to be one of my test cases for economically valuable human tasks. Not that I have any experience in the Buffalo Housing Court, but I have friends who have had experience. All right, so what do you get from being part of a team? You can explore multiple paths. You can have 6 ideas and have 5 of them realized by your collaborators. And then you can choose the best one. That's already a really efficient multiplicator of intelligence. Then you can get coaching. You can specialize, move towards the specialization in the area you really like to work in. And it teaches about standards and norms. It teaches about competition. And it's a kind of free, competitive environment where we can learn to run more quickly along the channels that we are interested in. We get reviews, we get congratulations, but then most importantly, we get humiliation and embarrassment. They are the most important features of working in teams. In other words, if we do something wrong, then we may very well suffer as a result. That too is an immense accelerator in advancing human cognitive capabilities. All right, so work slop. This is just the latest of the ways in which the simple systems called AI are revealing that they are simple systems because they fall below the expectations that human beings have. So this is very new. This is September the 25th. Work slop is AI-generated work content that masquerades as good work, but lacks the substance to meaningfully advance a given task. I don't know if any of you have heard of Gary Marcus, but every few days he documents another one of these cases where AI falls below the expectations of human beings. So why is the return on investment of generative AI so poor? Well, MIT Media Lab reports that 95% of organizations see no measurable return, and of 1,150 US-based full-time employees across industries, 40% report having received work slop in the last month. And so why is this? Well, it's because AI systems are never shamed for doing bad work. It doesn't make any sense because they're algorithms. You can't shame an algorithm. And so there are no controls, really. So I've been working a lot with ChatGPT and graphics of late. And I would say 1 in every 4 of the results will say, go to this link. I go to the link and it's dead. That's a case of work slop in the more general sense. All right, so we all know here in this room much more about how LLMs work than I know. So I'm going to go very quickly through this. We input a prompt. That's a human-produced entity. We're in control of the prompt. Then the prompt gets pulled from our control, and it's turned into a sequence of numbers. That sequence of numbers is then embedded into a large vector numerical structure based on the transformer mechanism. And so what is happening is that the machine is programmed to apply a statistical algorithm to high-dimensional continuous numerical vectors. That's what it's doing with my prompt, or with the numericalized version of my prompt. And then when it's finished doing that, which has nothing to do with human intelligence, or they're creating a cheat mechanism for making you think that they have something to do with human intelligence. And it's a really fantastic cheat mechanism, which is why it convinces us by producing really good answers on many occasions. It converts the results back to text, which we can read. And then the machine has the function, not of cheating, of course, they wouldn't say that, using an input prompt to generate an output response in just the same way that Google search and pocket calculators do. Just fantastically better, mostly, until they're not. It's called AGI or AI, artificial intelligence. Is it really intelligence in the same sense of the word that we use when we talk about human intelligence? I'm just raising this question. I would say that it is not the same. Rather, it's a simulation. It's not intelligent, it's simulating intelligence to a certain degree, which will get better, but it will never get perfect. With a simple system, which is a great achievement, they found a way of making a simple system emulate a complex system. Now let's see what's happening. So some of you will have heard of the clever Hans effect. A German school teacher had a horse. And he would go around Germany. People paid money to see this horse. It was Clever Hans, it was called. And the horse would do arithmetical calculations. And the people were amazed, so they kept coming back to see Clever Hans. Quite complicated looking mathematical calculations, it seems. Now, it turns out that this is all about training. So Clever Hans has been trained to cheat. And basically, how the cheating works is the question will be raised, maybe by a member of the audience, maybe this gentleman here, and the gentleman then will twitch a little bit, and Hans will start pressing his foot on the floor. And then the gentleman will do that again, and he'll stop. And the audience will be amazed. He'd just done an arithmetical calculation, when in fact, he was trained to cheat in a certain, very subtle way. This is a high school mathematics teacher. He knew what he was doing when it comes to finding interesting looking mathematical calculations, the results of which are just integers. So the horse seems as if it's really intelligent. That's why people pay money. But it's just simulating intelligent behavior. Now, there's already a literature on Clever Hans and LLMs. So I'm not making this up. There are talks and papers about how LLMs are fooling us in something like the way that Clever Hans was fooling all of those gullible Germans. This is what happened. Sam Altman trained a machine to simulate human intelligence. He called it ChatGPT-5, and it's really good. It does a fantastic job. It produced this graphic. Study this very carefully and see if you can see anything wrong. This was the result. The previous graphic was, mathematically speaking, a little bit hard to follow. It's also written in German cursive letters. So this is what ChatGPT, the great intelligence generating machine, came up with. And it has this. So there is an IQ test for LLMs, but they do badly. At 74, I think, is the average, 74, which is much less than the average human will do. And that's because there is work slop, or there are ways in which it falls short, particularly when it comes to graphical manipulation. There isn't an IQ test for teams, but there is this thing called the HBDI, which is an instrument for addressing features of members of teams which need to be tested and which need to be checked for and trained in and so forth. And so one of the dimensions of this test is the interpersonal expressive intuitive dimension, and the other is the big picture thinking, imaginative, visionary dimension. And then I have here good luck with all of these in LLMs. LLMs can do some of this. Analyzing facts, pretty good. Processing numbers, I'm tempted to say a little bit better. Logical thinking, also pretty good, but they always reach roadblocks where they can't get quite far enough. And sometimes they can add more training or change the programming to overcome those roadblocks. But then there are other roadblocks, and there will always be roadblocks because of the gap between simple systems and complex systems. Now, I came across this paper a couple of days ago. It's a very new paper. This studies the idea that AI is a capability. AI itself is a capability arising from the relations among human actors and algorithmic devices. I think that I accept this. Human intelligence is a capability. The machine which contains the programming of ChatGPT is a tool. It doesn't have intelligence. And no tool has intelligence. But it enables fantastically intelligent work on the part of human beings. We evolved from animals. Animals have instincts which are tied to the ancestral environment. Humans were forced out of their ancestral environment, for instance, by ice ages, but they survived, but they lost all their instincts because they no longer worked, which meant that they were biologically deficient, but they compensated by creating human intelligence, which is quite different from animal intelligence. Animal intelligence is based on instinctive responses. Human intelligence is based on creativity, basically. So we make artificial environments, including environments with tools like ChatGPT. And this has been going on now for hundreds of thousands of years. We're building ever more complicated niches with high cultures, really expensive research, as in this building here. So we're not merely adapting to our environmental circumstances, we're creating new environments, man-made environments. And now these are the marks of human intelligence. And this is Peter Higgs in front of the Large Hadron Collider. That is an example of an environment and of a team to which Higgs sort of belonged, which was based upon these adaptive, creative powers of humans working in teams with team leaders, with visions, crazy visions, which they managed to get funded. All right, so human collaboration implies shared experience. It involves mutual criticism and thereby inhibits work slop and enables planning and foresight. So we can look forward hundreds of years. We can look forward to what happens when we're dead and arrange things so that our plans now are realized when we're dead. And now let's go back to AGI just to finish. So this is, IBM says, a hypothetical stage where an AI system can match or exceed human cognitive abilities across any task. So I think this cognitive abilities across any task is obviously wrong. So you can easily think of many cognitive abilities which you could never run on a machine. But that's not the interesting point. The interesting point is any task. So what do they mean by task? So this was a slide I had 10 days ago. The idea would be that AGI would cover everything, but in a shallow way. But humans, they cover only a few things, but they go deeper and they can have springs of effectiveness which spread and lots of people join the team and so forth. I don't like this account anymore. So I've been looking at what they mean by task. They mean here task involving moving physical things around, bits of plastic, I suppose. Or they mean task involving image classification, object detection, question answering, code generation, motion prediction, motion planning. These are tasks which truly could be divided up into small bits. They're not the tasks that humans engage in, which are economically relevant and cognitively such that we are able to perform them. So this is what it really looks like. You have all the tasks in the mind of the people who write archive papers on tasks. And then they get the machine to solve some of these tasks, and then they cheer. But they never will solve all of those tasks because there are no such tasks. This is a picture of Zermatt in 1880, 1932, 1968, 2007. Think of every little house on here as a task. But then think more carefully, how many tasks are involved in each house? And how do they change when the weather changes, or if there's an avalanche or some other kind of, or if the workers go on strike? All the time, the tasks are changing, and each task is not really one task. It's connected with 7 or 17 other tasks. And then you want to build a hotel. Think of how many tasks that would involve. So there is no every task. It doesn't make sense. Just as to talk about every emotion in Buffalo, in the university at Buffalo, it doesn't make sense. Outperforms humans at most economically valuable work. So building a new hotel in Zermatt, you're not going to get an AGI to help you to do that. First of all, you need a very good facility to negotiate with politicians, for instance. And now let's try Buffalo, or real estate in general. So in the olden days, real estate was really easy. The king owned everything. But now, if you want to do anything in the real estate world, you have to address several of these organizations or constituencies with hungry hands out that they want some of your tax money in order to enable roads to be built to match the greater traffic density which will be brought by your hotel. So all of these together stand between you and building your hotel. There are more. This is just my guesswork. They form the framework in which economically valuable tasks are going to be realized. And I tried it. I tried to get ChatGPT to give me the same information about Buffalo. Buffalo Housing Court is on this list somewhere. It took me, I don't know, quite a long time to get this far, and it's still not right. The layout is still not right, and the font is too small, and so on and so on. But now the idea is that in order to build a hotel, or even just a house, or even to knock down a house, which is even harder, you need to go through that. Buffalo City Hall. To build a machine that can go through that is obvious nonsense. It doesn't make sense. And so the concept of AGI as a machine which can perform the cognitive processes needed to address all economically relevant tasks doesn't have anything to do with the way human intelligence is exercised in the real world. That's the end.